tomorrow morning once again. But it soon goes downhill. Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, much of England and Wales sees wet and windy weather returning. Coastal gales for the south coast, heavy and persistent rain, particularly over parts of Wales, and the rain for the higher parts of Wales really mounting up through Saturday and Sunday. 60 and in some places 100 millimetres of rain could cause disruption. But it's looking damp everywhere, but it is milder, 10 or 11 Celsius in the south, colder for Scotland, 8 Celsius at best here. Brighter skies for the north of Scotland, just a few showers. And that bright, showery weather in the north of Scotland tends to become more widespread on Monday and into Tuesday.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to the Saturday selection here on GB News with Esther McVeigh and Philip Davis. Coming up, we'll take you through all the top stories of the week, including the latest developments in Downing Street, whether a war in Ukraine really is imminent, and we're asking if chocolate really is the food of love this Valentine's Day. All that and more coming up after the news headlines.
Good morning, it's 1 minute past 10. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. President Joe Biden will speak to his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, today. That's as the United States prepares to evacuate staff from its embassy in Ukraine's capital, Kiev. Here, the Foreign Office is urging British nationals to leave Ukraine immediately while commercial means are still available. Former British ambassador to Russia, Sir Tony Brenton, told GB News the call between the two leaders represents the climax of this crisis.
What we're approaching now is the eyeball-to-eyeball moment when Biden and Putin, Biden either concedes some of the demands that Putin has made, although not, I'm sure, not in the form that they've been put, and they do a deal, or they don't. I really don't believe that Putin wants to go to war. Putin's a very cautious foreign policy operator. I know him. He's cold, he's calculating, but he doesn't take big risks. And invading Ukraine would be a very big risk.
The Metropolitan Police has given the Prime Minister just 7 days to explain his attendance at an event held at Number 10 during COVID restrictions or face a fine. Downing Street confirmed last night that Mr Johnson had received a legal questionnaire from officers and will respond. The Prime Minister is alleged to have been at up to 6 of the 12 events being investigated as part of Operation Hillman. He's denied any wrongdoing. The Taliban have released a British journalist they'd been holding for several days in Afghanistan. Andrew North was on assignment for the United Nations Refugee Agency, reporting on the country's humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, friends of a second British man detained by the Taliban have pleaded for his release. Peter Juvenal was visiting the country for business and family reasons, seen here on the left. He'd been held since early December. Experts from SAGE are warning that lifting all COVID restrictions will have a disproportionate impact on vulnerable people. It follows the Prime Minister's announcement that restrictions will end soon, including the need to self-isolate following a positive test. SAGE has also raised concerns about the consequences of removing access to free testing and called for clear and consistent messaging to the public about the ongoing risks. French police say they've intercepted 50 vehicles from so-called freedom convoys seeking to enter Paris. Inspired by the ongoing events in Canada, protesters are demonstrating against COVID-19 restrictions. They're expected to defy a police order and attempt to enter the French capital. France has mobilised thousands of police, set up checkpoints and riot control barriers to keep out the convoys. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now it's back to Saturday Selection.
Hello, you're watching the Saturday Selection here on GB News and, of course, listening on DAB Plus Digital Radio. I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm her better half, Philip Davis. We start, as we always do, with a look through the biggest stories of the week. And joining us in the studio is Dr Annette Pranziok, Director General of the Royal Overseas League. Annette, where do you want to start?
Good morning, both of you, and thank you for having me on the show. So I've got to start with the Queen's Accession Day message. It's really quite tremendous that we've reached 70 years of the Queen's accession to the throne. So I think that's just fantastic. The Queen, of course, represents a great deal of stability for us, you know, always been there and a great figurehead of the nation. I think it's quite interesting as well to see her sincere wish that Camilla should be known as the Queen Consort. And I think actually the nation's ready for that.
Yeah. And if you think about it, though, when the first time that Camilla came out into the public with Charles was 1999, and if you remember at the time, everybody saying, absolutely, this woman cannot be the Queen because of this long-standing, as it was, love affair. Diana had only died in 1997. So you might say 20-odd, whatever years, we've come a long, long way. But it wasn't such a warm welcome at the start, was it?
It wasn't at the start, but now I think after years of service, I think Camilla has really shown her worth and shown her service to the nation. So, and I think it was quite a touching message from the Queen.
And I think she said as well, you need somebody really strong, a really powerful consort, somebody who can be a confidant. And obviously she's talking there very powerfully about her former husband, yeah.
Absolutely. So,
and of course, the Queen's the patron of the Royal Overseas.
She is indeed. She is indeed.
You've got to stay on message with the Queen, haven't you?
Absolutely. You know, a great patron and much loved by all our members. We have members in the UK, but also all across the Commonwealth and beyond, because that's our mandate. It's international friendship in the Commonwealth and beyond. And of course, the Queen is head of the Commonwealth. So she's a very important figurehead to the Royal Overseas League, as well as to the nation and the Commonwealth.
What caught your eye this week in the news?
Well, I have to tell you, not only did I think it was one of the top news stories, I thought it was the best picture in the papers this week. And this has to be the table, and it is... Macron and Putin sat at the table there, a 20-foot table. There they are, kept apart. I mean, this is the ultimate way that a leader can show dominance over a visiting leader. You've heard of soft power, hard power. Well, this is table power. How
to... dinner, isn't it, to be perfectly honest? I thought it was a shot of us two eating dinner.
A 5-hour meeting, 20 foot apart there, but really exerting your dominance. And I was interested to read about how different countries do it differently. So dictators will have a leader of a table. The UK and the US will want more of an oval table so that it is shared power, though they do say, and it is true, that the British and Americans will have different ways of asserting their power. power. So round cabinet, the Prime Minister's chair is the only one with arms, and the President has a higher back than anybody else. But look, Annette, as somebody who does all of these dinners with leaders and ambassadors from around the world, how important is that table plan to assert authority or for people to know their place?
And also as a matter of manners, really, as well. So it is important. So when it comes to ambassadors as well as leaders, it's about the ambassador that's been longest serving in the country. So, for instance, the host will sit next to the ambassador that served longest within the country. So it could be the ambassador of Samoa. It could be a small country, and a newly arrived American ambassador could be at the end of the table because they haven't been in town for that long. As it happens in the UK, the longest-serving ambassador, the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, is the Kuwaiti ambassador. So whenever he's invited to events, he's always seated next to maybe the Prime Minister or to the Foreign Minister. Anyway, so we adhere to this very carefully at the Royal Overseas League as well, because you don't want to cause offence.
And does the American ambassador accept that then, if they're sort of right at the bottom end of the table? And
if it's a formal dinner, I think they have no choice.
Really? Oh, blimey.
And is it a circular table, a square table? That's another thing about power and dominance. Are you careful about all of that?
Well, we like Royal Overseas League because we're inclusive, we're friendly. We like to keep it a little bit more circular and slightly less formal, but just adhere to those kind of, priorities of who's been in the country first, the longest serving. But it's the same with heads of government as well. It's the longest serving at kind of G20 gatherings. That's the order there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, somebody who probably wouldn't have ever wanted to go to an ambassador's dinner caught my eye this week because it's Dennis Skinner's 90th birthday. The beast of Bolsover himself. And, I agree with Dennis Skinner on nothing, I think, actually. But what a great man. He was in Parliament from before I was born, and he lost at the last election after 49 years in Parliament. But Dennis Skinner, a real character, and Parliament needs more characters. And people they don't make them like Dennis Skinner anymore. Yes. And my favourite Dennis Skinner from Parliament used to get kicked out all the time because he'd say something offensive and wouldn't withdraw.
He was a character, without a doubt.
Well, my favourite one of Dennis Skinner's was that he once, referring to the Conservatives opposite, said, half of that lot over there are crooks. Half of that lot over there are crooks. And the Speaker stood up and said, Mr Skinner, you can't say that. You must withdraw. You can't say that. And he got up and said, all right then, half of that lot over there aren't crooks.
Brilliant.
Absolutely great man. And I just think that, even though I disagree with him on everything, he could get everything into coal mining, round to coal mine. I just think it's... what a great man, 90 years old, and no doubt still very tribal, anti-Tory.
Yeah. And when we meet him at the tube stop or whatever, he's still doing his Sudokus. I've got to stay sharp. I've got to know what I'm doing. He's really, down. Yeah.
My office was 2 doors away from me when I first got elected to Parliament, and I used to have long chats with him. He wouldn't chat with me in public.
Yes, I forgot.
But in private, he'd have long chats with you. And actually, he told me he was I think it was approaching his 80th birthday, and he said, "I've just passed my driving test." He said, all my kids have left, and so I've got no one to drive me around now, so I've had to learn how to drive myself. He passed his driving test approaching his 80th birthday, which was...
Annette, another story that caught your eye this week?
Well, I had to go for the sad passing of Bamber Gascoigne, another national treasure.
Absolutely.
Bamber Gascoigne, for 25 years, presented University Challenge. Don't we all remember all those buzzwords, starter for 10 and... it's just fantastic character, really. So, it was sad to see the
People
passing.
still use those catchphrases, don't they? Just in an ordinary office environment. I'll give you this one for a starter for 10, or, I'll have to hurry you.
Finger on the buzzer.
All that kind of stuff, no conferring. But he also, I understand that when he started, he also wrote the questions as well as presented the...
I didn't know that.
The show. Yeah, no, he did.
What a polymath.
They always say that he was the man who made being a boffin and an intellect fun. He was the guy who really made people want to be great intellects. He's also got a huge connection, the Bamber Gascoigne family, to Liverpool going back to the 1700s. Really? Yes, it was a well-to-do family and owns large swathes of land in Liverpool, of which they gave some over to the children in perpetuity for them to play on the land there in Liverpool.
Oh, that's wonderful. Because you're right, he was very posh and accessible.
He was an Etonian. He went to Eton. He was. And he also wrote a letter before the Scottish referendum, independence referendum, with 200 public figures to argue against Scottish independence. So he wasn't afraid to get involved in a political row as well.
Yeah, now I've got this, if we can show this. I'm not sure what you're going to think to this, Annette, but two ladies have designed these urinals, flat pack urinals, devastated that they'd have to queue for a long time if they were at music festivals. So they've come up with, if we can see them, these toilets. Oh, this is how you can squat, don't touch and can go. There's no doors. They're known as peakles. It is 6 times faster. There they are. It's 6 times faster to go there, but there is no roof and you can see over the top. Now, to be honest, it's not for me. I have to be honest with you. They've said they are eco-friendly. They are flat packs. They're the two ladies who have designed it, won an award, £250,000 to do it, but it's not for me. What do you think there? No privacy.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would
see over the top.
I'm not
I can
sure
see why it's 6 times faster.
I mean, you know, I have travelled quite widely, Africa and Asia, and occasionally you have to use the bushes, and that's sort of slightly different because there is a bit of privacy there. So I think I'm with you, Esther. Not one for me either.
This is a step down from going behind the bushes. This is a step down from that.
Exactly. I think it was. I'm with you. It's the privacy. I don't need to be looking eye to eye with somebody else. No, private privacy. That's what we need. Well, coming up, we're asking if it's right to ask companies to publish pay details for ethnic workers in the name of equality. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, a very good morning to you. I'm Aidan McGivern. A very different start to the day compared to yesterday. Yesterday was frosty but bright in many places. Today it's frost-free but windy and, in some locations, wet. Spells of rain are expected through the weekend. These weather fronts across the UK, stretching all the way back to the mid-Atlantic, they're going to continue to pile in throughout today and tomorrow. So, increasingly damp really across northern and western parts of England as well as Wales. The rain turning heavier and more persistent across Wales and northwest England into the afternoon. Drier and brighter ahead of that for East Anglia, the southeast, parts of the East Midlands, central southern England, but increasingly breezy and cloudy. Sunny spells coming through for Scotland and Northern Ireland, blustery showers here. 10 Celsius for Belfast, 8 for Manchester, 8 for London. Similar to yesterday, but not feeling very pleasant because of the wind and the rain. Coastal gales around Irish Sea coasts, and then the rain eventually sinks into southern England during the evening. Easing off for a time before further spells of heavy rain push back into Wales and the southwest by dawn tomorrow. Drier to the north with some clear spells for Scotland, also a few showers, and frost-free tomorrow morning once again. But it soon goes downhill. Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, much of England and Wales sees wet and windy weather returning. Coastal gales for the south coast, heavy and persistent rain, particularly over parts of Wales, and the rain for the higher parts of Wales really mounting up through Saturday and Sunday. 60 and in some places 100 millimetres of rain could cause disruption. But it's looking damp everywhere, but it is milder, 10 or 11 Celsius in the south, colder for Scotland, 8 Celsius at best here. Brighter skies for the north of Scotland, just a few showers. And that bright, showery weather in the north of Scotland tends to become more widespread on Monday and into Tuesday.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's almost 10:20, and one of the biggest stories of the week involved a Premier League footballer and an act of cruelty against a domestic cat, which has divided opinion amongst football fans and beyond.
Despite being fined £250,000, as well as the intervention of the RSPCA, Kurt Zouma has been allowed to carry on playing by his club West Ham, even though he was filmed kicking his cat across his kitchen.
Joining us in the studio is sports writer, broadcaster and Saturday Selection regular Aidan McGee. Aidan, West Ham decided against suspending Kurt Zouma. What's your view?
Well, look, we have to believe in these situations that there has to be rehabilitation available to these people. I believe that looking at, if I know Premier League clubs as well as I think I do, and I've worked with them for 20 years pretty much solidly, I think they would have wanted to reintegrate him or reintroduce him to the team as early as possible, because it has to be done. So if we agree that he's got to play at some time, why not do it sooner rather than later? I think they wanted to do it for a home game against Watford in the hope that perhaps the story will have subsided somewhat as the week went on. Now, of course, by not playing him, it got everyone's back up. And so as the week went on, it actually got bigger. And in fact, David Moyes was grilled yesterday at the press conference about whether he made the right decision. And we always moan, don't we, or we always complain that some leaders in public life, some companies don't show enough backbone. I actually applaud West Ham for ignoring or defying the Twitter mob, because they're the ones who said, I stand by playing him on Wednesday, and he's going to play tomorrow at Leicester in the 4:30 kickoff. He's suffered enough as it is. Maybe some people would say not enough. I think a £250,000 fine is quite substantial. That's going to go to animal welfare charities. He's lost his boot deal with Adidas. West Ham have suffered as it is as well, because, yes, they haven't lost a player, which would have punished them even more, but they've also had experience kissing me. They've reviewed and subsequently ended their sponsorship deal with West Ham. They've had that for 5 years. Vitality, the sponsors have pulled out of the club as well. So they're suffering as it is. And I think, where does it end? I mean, some people just literally want blood. Some people want to actually send this guy to prison. You know, the Met initially said they weren't even going to investigate. He's had his cats taken off him as well. He's going to get abuse for this for the rest of his career. If we agree that there's going to be rehabilitation for this person, and you agree that he's going to play football again, I don't see what benefit anyone gains from suspending him for 3 weeks, because you're just kicking the can down the road. In 3 weeks' time, he has to be reintegrated again, and he'll just get abused then, and the story will just be resurfaced. We'll be talking about it again. What do you think?
Well, but when people do something wrong, they get a punishment.
Yes.
And it's usually in football, it's a few games ban. If they get sent off, they get a few games ban. It's not that they're not going to play again. They get a. But it's some kind of punishment.
But this wasn't an offence that took place on the field of play, so it's outside the remit of the Premier League or the FA.
I think when David Moyes said, look, my job's to pick the best team to win a match, some people might say, well, look, do you know what? As a football team, if the thing's not more important than football, is your brand as a club and what your values are, is that not more important than sort of... So, I mean, in the cold light of day, do you think David Moyes might have made a difference? Now he's played him, he's got to keep playing him now. But do you think in the cold light of day, do you think he might have thought, do you know what, actually, perhaps this has damaged our brand and that's more important than just a game of football?
Possibly. I mean, I actually do agree that they should have played him early on. I think, in answer to your question, though, is David Moyes regretting it today? It wasn't just his decision, it was a club decision, we should say. So I think they probably do regret playing him now because, I mean, look, apart from anything else, they've lost 2 quite big sponsorship deals out of it. So you've got to look at the commerce.
Bigger than your brand. And let's look at everybody who looks up to footballers.
Yes. It's not an ordinary job, is it?
Young people or whatever, young boys, young girls. So I think, as somebody who is a role model, what he did was wrong,
yes.
Absolutely wrong, and you have to send that message. So I'm going bigger than the brand of the club. Of course he shouldn't have been allowed to play. I mean, this is about discipline, it's about abuse, it's about how you treat people, how you treat animals. So for me, it was wrong. He needs to acknowledge it was wrong. What was he doing? Who was filming it? What was he doing?
Look,
what
was his brother. It was his brother filming
yes,
it.
But
It was just crazy.
It out.
Yes, it was just crazy.
So they've shown that message out to the public. So for me, no, it wasn't good enough that you just said, oh, we need to play him. We're short of somebody, we'll play him. No.
I just think it was that not playing him would have punished the club, it would have punished the supporters, it would have punished his teammates and the supporters when they didn't deserve that. They didn't kick the cat. Most of those people didn't. I wasn't impressed by his statement. He was saying, I apologise if anyone was offended.
By association, though, you've stood by him, and on this one, they needed to say no. Whatever the discipline procedure was, it needs to be swiftly administered and a sharp rebuke, and they didn't do any of that.
Some people would say that, you know, fining a footballer is not really a punishment. They've got so much money that, you know, a fine,
it's
even
2 weeks.
But of course, that's the maximum they can fine them.
But actually, the only way you can punish a footballer is to stop them playing, and that's the only way you can really punish a footballer.
Yeah, would it really have punished him? It takes him out of the firing line in some ways. You know, some people would say, well, actually, he's getting away with it a little bit. Something we'll be talking about something else next week.
You know, when we look at sort of violence in society and we look at maybe lack of discipline in society, you look at respect and you look at respect to others, this is something that is, to me, ultimately corrosive in society.
Yeah.
And if you want to stop that, if you want to say we have high standards in this country, which we do, on animal welfare, how we treat others, you know, less powerful creatures and people, a message really did need to be sent out.
OK, fine, but in addition to that, West Ham, in conjunction with the RSPCA, and the RSPCA, we should say, have not actually acknowledged receiving any money yet, so we don't actually know if any funds have been transferred, but that's what West Ham said they're going to do, and they're going to give the money to animal welfare charities as well. But this is about rehabilitation as well. He's got to go out, to me, he's got to go out in the community with the RSPCA, he's got to go out on patrol and understand the effects that animal cruelty has on these creatures and what they go through and the fear that they experience, especially when, I mean, Kurt Zouma's 6'4", and he's kicking a cat around a room and his brother's filming it. I mean, somebody in that WhatsApp group must have been absolutely appalled by what was going on to then leak it to a newspaper. And so he needs to, that's part of the rehabilitation. He needs to understand the consequences of his actions, and that to me, that goes beyond whether he plays football or not. That goes into the realms of education and getting out into the local community and finding out what the animals go through, the trauma and the suffering they experience.
Aidan McGee, thank you very much for joining us. We'd love to hear your views about that too. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Now, a group of mothers from Yorkshire who have all lost a child to suicide are trying to raise awareness about the impact of suicide for those left behind. Anna Scott is from the Yorkshire Speak Their Name Quilt campaign and joins us now. Anna, thank you for joining us. Firstly, tell us a bit about what you're doing and what you want to achieve.
Hi, Philip and Esther. We are the Yorkshire Speak Their Name quilt group. We're creating a quilt out of squares made in memory of loved ones lost to suicide, to create a beautiful quilt as a tribute to those people who died, to our loved ones. And in doing that, we hope to create a network of peer support where people can support each other through their lived experience. We took up the baton of the quilt idea from the Greater Manchester Suicide Memorial Quilt, which was produced in 2020 during lockdown, which was difficult to do. They did a really good job of doing all that online. What we're hoping to do is to take that from them and create something just as wonderful for people in Yorkshire.
So, Anna, this is for people who have taken their own lives in Yorkshire, whether they lived there or studied there or worked there. You're wanting to publicise this. What is it that you want? If people are from that family where somebody has taken their own lives, how do they get involved in this campaign?
They can contact us. What we're trying to do at the moment, some of the squares are already in the making. People have joined us on the Facebook group and through email and through connections with suicide prevention leads throughout the counties of Yorkshire. So we're trying to reach out to people from all the corners of Yorkshire to give them the opportunity to take part so that they can all have a chance to be part of our group and part of the project. So at the moment, we're trying to get the word around that we exist and inviting people to make squares for our quilt.
Now, quilting has got a long history of sort of storytelling and calling for change. Obviously, this is part of what you're doing, but is there something about sharing your grief, people coming together to talk about what's gone on? What are you hoping to do for the people who are coming together to make this quilt?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you lose someone to suicide, it's particularly difficult. You know, there is a feeling of isolation that people don't understand, that you can clear a room just by talking about it. And we're bringing people together, and already we have a network of support mostly through our Facebook group, where we meet on Zoom on a Tuesday or a Thursday night, and people are able to speak in a safe space about their experience of losing their loved one to suicide. So we're all basically in the same boat.
You say that, I mean, it is a very difficult conversation to have with somebody. Like you said, you could clear a room, but you really do need to speak about this grief, and therefore you've come together. You're a network, really. You're a support group as well, aren't you?
Yes, we are. We're not trained counsellors, but we are people who can support each other through lived experience of losing someone to suicide. Which is very important, because one of the overriding things that is emerging from this is that people kind of almost universally feel that there is no support. There is no network of people who understand or people who can help them to carry on without these sort of volunteer peer support groups. And already people are finding the benefit from that through our sharing and through our being part of a collective effort to make the quilt.
Anna, Scott, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you every success with this project. I know that you want people who have been bereaved by a member of their family taking their own lives to get in touch from Yorkshire, and I know that you want them all done by July, so it's ready for World Suicide Prevention Day in September. So thank you for joining us. We wish you every success with your project. And thank you for what you do.
Can I just add our email address?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, please.
Yorkshire Speak Their Name @gmail.com, and the Facebook group is facebook.com/groups/Yorkshire Speak Their Name.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you for joining us, and all the best for it.
Thank you very much.
And once again, that email address is yorkshirespeaktheirname@gmail.com if anybody from the Yorkshire region has been bereaved by a member of their family taking their own life. Now, earlier this week, the Commons Women and Equality Select Committee recommended the government should introduce mandatory reporting of the pay gap between staff from different ethnic groups.
Large company would be required by law to publish data on employee salaries in the same way that they are for gender pay.
But there are plenty of people, even some on the Select Committee, who question how effective this would be.
So let's speak now to Baroness Ruby McGregor-Smith, the former Chief Executive of the Mighty Group and President of the British Chambers of Commerce. Thanks for joining us. Now, you're in favour of this report, and what do you think it's trying to achieve, Ruby?
Good morning, everybody. I think it's really important that we do have the ethnicity pay gap. And the reason why we have to do the reporting is because until we know where we stand with data, organisations can't put a plan around what they're going to do. We've seen very much with the gender pay gap reporting that it started the conversation. We still don't have all the answers. And we don't have gender equality to where we want it to be in the workplace. But at least we've managed to start with the data and the conversation to make everyone aware of the challenges on pay. And that's why I think it's so important to do it now on the ethnicity pay gap. I've been calling for this since 2017. I'm delighted to see it's being backed more and more. But over 800 companies are now doing it on a voluntary basis. And I would implore everyone to certainly follow suit until it becomes law.
And is this the best way to go about that, getting this equality in the workplace?
I think it's just one of many things that you can do. But until we have data, companies aren't going to do anything unless they see data. You can't just do everything based on how you feel or what you think is right. On this particular subject, the way to cut through all the challenges is to talk about what people are paid, what gaps exist, and what more needs to be done to support employees.
Ruby, the problem that I have with this is that, first of all, the figures are produced on a sort of a rather blunt white versus non-white basis, which seems very divisive to me. But also, it doesn't actually reflect. These figures are meaningless, aren't they? Because it doesn't reflect the huge differentials there are within different ethnic groups. So, just to give you an illustration from the Office of National Statistics, white British employees had an average hourly rate of £12.49, whereas for white Irish it was £17.55 an hour. Black African employees on average earned £10.57 an hour, Pakistani employees £10.55 an hour, but Chinese employees were £15.38 an hour. I mean, even within white people, there's a massive gap between white working class people and other white people. So actually, aren't these figures just completely meaningless, really, when they're boiled down into a white versus non-white position?
We've got to start somewhere, and it's the best place to start. And of course, it's not perfect. It was never designed to be perfect. But once you have some numbers, you can then drill down and work out where the real differences are. The fact that when I did my report in 2017 on the top FTSE 100 companies, 49 of them had data only that was meaningful. How can we be in a situation where you run a large group and you don't have the data on your employees? There are many reasons for that, but until you do, you can't put action plans around the groups you need to help. So we need to start somewhere. And of course, blunt instruments don't work, but it's the starting point only. I think this is going to take many years to get right, but if we had actually started 4 years ago, we'd be in a better place than we are today, which is very little data, and it's too blunt. Would have got a bit more sophisticated. I just wonder why people don't want to do it. You know, it's very easy to say never report on X, Y, and Z. But this same debate happened on a whole range of issues, including climate change. Now, ultimately, we need to start somewhere and we need to get on with it.
I just wondered whether or not there might be some unintended consequences from doing this, because it seems to me inevitable that somebody, probably The Guardian, probably will do a league table of employers and their ethnicity pay gap, even though the figures themselves aren't necessarily particularly meaningful. And my fear, I guess, is that if a FTSE 100 company is at the top of this pay gap league table that no doubt somebody's going to produce, rather than actually trying to tackle some of the issues that you've mentioned in terms of racial equality, what they may do is say to their HR director, look, let's just do, how am I going to get off the top of this league table next year? And the HR director might say, well, actually, if you don't take on any ethnic minority apprentices, you're going to be in a much better position with your pay gap, because obviously if you take on ethnic minority apprentices, that's going to bring you, that extends your gap. So do you not fear that there could be some unintended consequences like that, which will actually have a negative impact on people from an ethnic minority?
Whenever you do new reporting, there is always a danger you can get unintended consequences. I completely understand that. But actually, people that are really serious about this agenda, and I'd say many of the FTSE companies I know would not do that. What they would be doing is saying, let's publish the data, let's put an action plan around it, let's be honest about it and talk about the challenges we've got to do. There is absolutely no point starting to play around with this subject anymore to make sure that you look better. What matters is that you deal with the issues in your own organisation. So, of course, there's a risk, but you know what? Sooner or later, we've got to take that risk.
So, in this regard, is it part of a deeper, longer conversation? Is that what you're saying, Ruby? Let's look into how we're treating all employees, irrespective of sort of gender, ethnicity. Is that really what you're pushing for?
Absolutely. It's not just going to stop here. If you take a look at an employee base, take a look at even disability. No one really understands all the statistics around their own organisation. And then you don't know how to put the best employment practices in for different groups of people. And you don't know who's going to need mentoring, who's going to need sponsoring, who's going to need real support through their careers because of their different backgrounds and because of their different situations. So data really helps. And business, by the way, only ever operates on data. So if it hasn't got it, it's not going to do very much. And look, many organisations, and I really thank the ones that have already started to publish voluntarily, have started this journey, and it's going to get better each year. But until we start, really start, and the government doesn't push for it at the moment to be a legal requirement, which it should do. It's the same as what we did on women, and it's the same with the debate on women on boards. We are not going to see different groups of people running different organisations at the top of the organisations, and still we start to publish the data around people.
Baroness Ruby McGregor-Smith, who I know has also been a champion for women on boards as well. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Now, I think Ruby's got a point there that she's wanting to have a discussion there within the workplace, but I see what you're saying. A lot of these figures are distorters. And what I would also like to know is, are these people that you're comparing, are they doing the same job? Have they been in the company for the same length of time? Because that, again, is a distorter. You might be doing the same job, but if you've taken time out for whatever reason, look after family, look after children, you haven't had that annual incrementation, sort of increase in your wage because of the length of time you spent there. So it's a very complex area, but I think you're right to just put whites against non-whites when you saw there Chinese doing really well, Indians doing really well. So there's huge disparity in it. So do you think it's going to be more divisive than it is constructive?
I do. I think it will have these unintended consequences. And look, I just don't think the figures matter. I mean, the Equality and Human Rights Commission, who, are telling everybody that they've got to get their pay gaps down. They've got an ethnicity pay gap of 6% in their organisation. But they've done a pay audit which found that their pay system was fair and non-discriminatory. So surely that's what matters, that their pay system's non-discriminatory, not what this meaningless pay gap figure is.
So do you want to ask people if they want to get in touch?
Yes, no, we'd love to hear what people think about this. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Coming up, we'll be asking tennis star turned TV presenter Annabel Croft what she would do if she ruled the world.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
This is GB News. It's 10:42.
Here we are, and I think we're going to go to Annabel Croft. Is that right? We are indeed. So, former #1 tennis player, and we're going to ask her what we would do, what she would do if she ruled the world. So, hello, morning, Annabel. How are you this morning?
Esther. I'm really well, thank you. I have been for a lovely run in the park and I have just had my bacon and eggs. So, yeah, the morning is good so far.
So, if you rule the world, we always get somebody on, a famous figure like your good self, to ask, if you rule the world, what would you do?
Well, you know what, Esther, I think I'd have to say I would get rid of all social media. I can't bear it. I think I know there's some positives from it. And obviously there's a lot of people that do it. I have sort of done some of it myself. I am on there, so I'm guilty of it as well. But I'm not sure I really like it. I think it's turning us into narcissists, and there's too much of us posing around and worrying about whether we're missing out on parties. As I said, I know there's some positives from it, from a business perspective, and being able to have a platform that you can promote your business on. But I think there's less book reading, and I think for kids we're being kind of manipulated psychologically by the tech companies. So I would like to get rid of all of it and go back to reading more books.
You're a mum, so do you see this with your children, that they're spending maybe too much time on social media? Do you see the changes there, that and the distractions and the negativity and the competition that you didn't have when you were growing up?
Absolutely. I mean, when I was on the tennis tour, you know, I was traveling around and I'd make phone calls to make my booking to get to the next venue. And I'd spend quite a lot of time. So, you know, I can see where it's more efficient if you go through, you know, the technological side of things. But yeah, definitely. I see it with my kids. They're actually they're actually teaching me about the way it's going. Some of them are on Twitter. Some of them are not on Twitter. Then they're saying they don't like Instagram. Then they do like Instagram. But I think there's an awful lot of mental side of things that you can create a lot of problems with all of these with all of these social media platforms. And I think also a lot of upset. I mean, there's so much nastiness out there. There's a lot of negativity. And I just think it's quite vile, actually. And I'm quite shocked at some of the stuff that is laid out on social media platforms. So, yes, I think it's back to a bit more kindness and niceness and treating people with respect and accepting other people's views, I would say. So, you know, I think a lot less book reading, I would say, for younger people going on. I don't know, I'm generalising here, but it certainly feels that way.
Well, as two MPs, I think we'd certainly support you in banning social media, Annabel. I mean, I'm on Twitter. I don't tweet, but I am on Twitter. I'm just there as a public service so people can hurl abuse at me. Do you?
I do it in person. Yeah. They do it by tweet.
Esther has an anonymous profile which she does it behind. But I mean, do you get lots of abuse on social media?
Well, I don't tweet very often. I do have a Twitter account and I do have an Instagram account, and I tend to use it in a way which, if we are, as I say, promoting some tennis event that's coming up, then I'll put something out about that. But in the earlier days, I definitely put more opinions up there, and then you'd get the wrath of a few people coming at you. And I know there's bots out there that will attack you and everything. And I just noticed it's actually all quite vile. And, you know, I always think if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it, because who are the people that are spending so much time out there? Well, we all spend way too much time out there looking at it, don't we? And I think when you look at that screen time that your phone will show you how much time you spent on it, it's quite horrifying. And I think, wow, I'd much rather go for a walk in the park or a run around, you know, the lakes or whatever, and play some tennis, do some yoga. there's so much more positives to be had out of just out there doing things rather than just constantly looking at the screen and looking whether there were enough likes or hearts on something. And, it's all quite weird the way world's gone. And I try and say to my kids, I never had that. And actually up in our loft here, my youngest daughter found a whole stack of letters that had been sent to me or I had sent to people and got replies back from when I was on the tour. And of course, for younger people, they don't really see that anymore. To see a whole bunch of sort of international letters going backwards and forwards, that's
letters
kind of
are
new.
novel.
That's alien to them. Well, they are. And my daughter spent hours looking through all these letters because to her it was sort of, how extraordinary. People just don't do that anymore. So I found that quite interesting.
Do you think it's tougher being a sports star nowadays with social media? And do they spend an? I mean, I know obviously you're now a senior commentator and an analyst on tennis. Do they spend a lot of time reading the social media posts that people are putting up about them, or can they ignore it?
No, I think a lot of them do. And quite often you see with tennis players where their coaches will encourage them. If they're doing well in a tournament, they're almost told, put your phone away and don't look at it until the end of the event, because they can very much get distracted. And I know some of them have spoken out about, some of the hurt and upset that they would have received from social media, while they're in the middle of the tournament. And of course, the betting angle comes into that. So if people have been betting on certain athletes and then they don't win or they don't perform the way that person who bet on them thinks it, then I think there's an enormous amount of abuse that goes towards that athlete, which is terribly upsetting. And you like to think every athlete when they're out on the stage is putting in 100% effort, and they can't win every single time. But of course, if people are betting on them, then it gets quite nasty. So fortunately, that was never around when I played, because I really don't think I could cope with that at all.
Annabel, before you go, I just wanted to, I was looking around and I saw something called Vanabel. Where apparently you had bought yourself an ex-delivery van and turned it into a camper van. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
I did. Oh, I'm so pleased you found it, because it was a lockdown project. And I have to say, it was one of the most revelationary things to me, because I never knew you could convert an old van, an old white van that normally does the delivery of your parcels each day, and turn it into a little home. So that was our Lockdown 3 project here. And I'm very fortunate because my husband was an ex-yachtsman, and yachtsmen seem to be very good with their hands. They can build and fix anything in case they're out across the Atlantic and having to sort of fix a yacht, without sinking. So, so we completely converted this white van. It took us about 3 months to do it. And now it's this little home, and it's like being a snail with your home on your back, and it's off grid, so we don't need any extra power. We can take it from the solar panels on the roof, and it's got a shower and a loo, a little kitchen. It's got a little seating area to eat at. It turns into a sort of a bench seat if you want to do it like that, and then a bed that pulls out, and you can sleep in it overnight, and then a little garage at the back. So it's quite amazing. And I'm really looking forward to taking it on lots of trips. We've done a couple already. Went to Wales, to Pembrokeshire coast. We've done the North Norfolk coast as well, and we would love to take it up to the Hebrides, where my daughter took it. But so much to explore here in Britain, so I'm really looking forward to taking it out and about.
Annabel Croft, it's been wonderful having you with us. I'm delighted that your goal would be to get rid of social media, and you can see with all the extra time you've got, you can go touring, you can convert a van, you can have so much fun. Thank you for joining us, and we'll no doubt be watching you soon doing tennis commentary.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Now, it's nearly Valentine's Day, and husbands and boyfriends up and down the country will be raiding their nearest petrol stations and corner shops for a last-minute bunch of flowers or a cheap box of chocolates on offer for their not-so-loved ones.
Won't be any more. But perhaps this year you should be aiming for something a little bit more special, Philip. Ollie Dunn is a master chocolatier who not only makes wonderful chocolates, he'll teach you how to do it too. Ollie joins us now. So, Ollie, is Valentine's Day sort of the best day of the year, or at least one of them? You've got Christmas and Easter there as well, but is Valentine's Day right up there?
Certainly, yes. It is. I mean, to be honest, Christmas is the big one. Like 2/3 of annually packaged chocolates are sold at Christmas time, and then Easter is massive for anything chocolate. Valentine's, we have to gear up for it. We have to get the right packaging. And the big thing for us is the personalisation. And it's quite interesting because you never quite know what requests you might get. We do take bespoke orders, and I won't mention some of the shapes that we are often asked to create, but they certainly leave people with lasting memories, and that's what it's all about for us, creating an experience for people. It's the best quality Belgian chocolate that we use, and it's memories for people as well as being something that tastes incredible.
But you've got chocolate in your blood, as it were. I mean, you've got sort of a chocolate family. Your dad's a chocolate master, master chocolatier. You are too. So how do you become a chocolate master?
Well, absolutely right, that Esther. Chocolate is in my blood. It's in my DNA. I've grown up surrounded by it. Mum and Dad used to make chocolates from home when me and my sister Camilla were children. So we used to sneak down into the chocolate factory in the middle of the night. And I think it was just something that I took an interest in. And I realized that every day could be so different, creating different things. And that's the exciting bit for me. I'm literally waking up, 20 years this year working with chocolate. And my dad's been working with chocolate for 20 years. That's the family business, Simon Dunn Chocolatier. But yeah, the fun never stops. I literally wake up in the night thinking, what can I make tomorrow? So it's a passion.
Very rock and roll, aren't you? You're not just a sort of chocolatier, but you're sort of Glastonbury rock and roll chocolate.
Yeah, it's chock and roll, as I call it. You can see the mural here. I'm streaming live events out to the States. I do virtual corporate events, and they love all that. Like, it's just a little bit more fun. It's a little bit more edgy. I love listening to music whilst I'm making my chocolate. That is one of my big inspirations. So it made sense that, I got that involved in the whole branding. And yeah, it's part of me, I guess, chock and roll.
And you teach people how to be chocolate artists. I can only say that. You've got chocolate as your paint, as it were, and that's what you teach people to do now.
Yeah, and it's quite an unusual concept, the thought of actually, people creating chocolate they might not eat. It might look too good to eat, and they might just keep it, and it will last for years as long as it's kept cool. But yeah, I do lots of these events, and I was very lucky that I was able to adapt during the pandemic and deliver events to people, but it became a global thing. I was offering local events in real life prior to this, and then I was able to send kits out to people anywhere on the planet, teach them how to do something creative, and that was the big thing for me. It's good for well-being. It's that creative process, and for me, that's where my real passion is. Giving people that, chocolate, something to unlock their creativity, and it's also a way that I get to communicate with the world. So yeah, I love it.
I've got to say, Ollie, I'm very jealous. I think everybody in the world would want their dad to be a chocolate maker, to be perfect. I mean, you must have had a privileged upbringing. Tell us, Valentine's Day's coming up. What's the ideal gift? I suppose I'll be expected to buy something for Esther.
The reason you're on the programme, Ollie, is for tips and ideas for Philip.
I was thinking about
it's a subtle hint.
Dairy milk or a twirl or something. Is there anything better that I need to go for Valentine's Day?
You'll have to come and speak to me. We should sort something out off the air. I've got lots of ideas. One of the things that I do is it's called a chocolate smash. So it looks a bit like a cake, and it is, either round or in a heart shape for Valentine's, and it can be any colour. We can use like edible metallic gold, so very kind of decorative. But it's to be smashed, and that's the crazy thing. You can hide anything you want inside it. I've had people buy them and put engagement rings inside, tickets to music festivals or whatever, and it has to be smashed to discover the content. So, the creativity just keeps on going.
Ollie, before you say anything, Philip, I'm liking the sound of that hidden, expensive gift within the chocolate.
Gosh. Ollie, I'm from Yorkshire. Have you not got a cheaper option?
Could do a smaller one for you. Still fit a diamond inside it, though.
About the same size as Philip's by the sound of things. Ollie, our master chocolatier there, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me, and happy Valentine's to you both.
So, coming up, we'll let you know what's caught our eye in Saturday's papers, because it's the Saturday selection right here on GB News.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to Saturday Selection here on GB News with Esther McVeigh and Philip Davis. Coming up, we'll take you through all of Saturday's top stories with the help of Dr. Annette Pranziok. With rampant grade inflation expected again this summer, we're asking if GCSEs and A-levels should be scrapped. And we've got the usual Saturday sport and showbiz for you as well. That's all coming up after the news headlines.
Good morning, it's almost 11 a.m. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. President Joe Biden will speak to his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, today. That's as the United States prepares to evacuate non-emergency staff from its embassy in Ukraine's capital, Kiev. Here, the Foreign Office is urging British nationals to leave Ukraine immediately while commercial means are still available. Former British ambassador to Russia, Sir Tony Brenton, told GB News the call between the two leaders represents the climax of this crisis.
What we're approaching now is the eyeball-to-eyeball moment when Biden and Putin, Biden either concedes some of the demands that Putin has made, although not, I'm sure, not in the form that they've been put, and they do a deal, or they don't. I really don't believe that Putin wants to go to war. Putin's a very cautious foreign policy operator. I know him. He's cold, he's calculating, but he doesn't take big risks. And invading Ukraine would be a very big risk.
The Metropolitan Police has given the Prime Minister just 7 days to explain his attendance at an event held at number 10 during COVID restrictions or face a fine. Downing Street confirmed last night that Mr Johnson had received a legal questionnaire from officers and will respond. The Prime Minister is alleged to have been at up to 6 of the 12 events being investigated as part of Operation Hillman. He's denied any wrongdoing. The Taliban have released a British journalist they'd been holding for several days in Afghanistan. Andrew North was on assignment for the United Nations Refugee Agency, reporting on the country's humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, friends of a second British man detained by the Taliban have pleaded for his release. Peter Juvenal, seen here on the left, was visiting the country for business and family reasons. He's been held since early December. Experts from SAGE are warning that lifting all COVID restrictions will have a disproportionate impact on vulnerable people. It follows the Prime Minister's announcement that restrictions will end soon, including the need to self-isolate following a positive test. SAGE has also raised concerns about the consequences of removing access to free testing and called for clear and consistent messaging to the public about the ongoing risks. A charity is warning there's a hidden mental health crisis for older people, with millions having lost the confidence to leave their homes. Age UK says the pandemic has had an alarming impact on the elderly, who are now experiencing anxiety, memory loss and disturbed sleep. The charity is urging friends and relatives of older people to reach out and encourage them to ask for help if they're struggling. A court of arbitration panel will decide if Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva's Winter Olympics will be allowed to continue after she tested positive for a banned heart drug. The 15-year-old prodigy became the first woman to land a quadruple jump at the Olympics on Monday, winning a team figure skating gold. She's now scheduled to compete in the singles on Tuesday. If sent home, Valieva would be one of the youngest athletes ever removed from the Olympics for doping. Secretary-General of the Court of Arbitration for Sport, Matteo Reeb, says the decision will be made as quickly as possible.
We guarantee normally our decisions within 24 hours, so we need to stick to that because the games are so intense, the program is so tight that we need to deliver decisions on time. Some cases are more complex than others, but we try to stick to that rule so that I would say the medal can be delivered during the games and not later.
French police say they've intercepted 50 vehicles from so-called freedom convoys seeking to enter Paris. Inspired by the ongoing events in Canada, protesters are demonstrating against COVID-19 restrictions. They're expected to defy a police order by attempting to enter the French capital. France has mobilised thousands of police, set up checkpoints and riot control barriers to keep out the convoys. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Saturday Selection.
Hello, you're watching the Saturday Selection here on GB News. And of course, listening on DAB+ digital radio. I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis. We're joined in the studio again by Dr. Annette Pranziok, Director General of the Royal Overseas League, to help go through the Saturday papers. Annette, let's start with what's happening with Russia and the Ukraine.
Absolutely. So one of the headlines, Russia set to invade any day now. Well, interesting question. Is Putin really going to risk that? I still wonder, really, because is he really wanting to get bogged down into guerrilla war, a bit like Afghanistan? I mean, I think it's good to kind of actually look back and why we're here. So it's this kind of Russian fear of being encircled by NATO. And so I think Putin's playing a bit of a high poker stakes game. So I still think he's not going to do it.
But it's all over the papers that British citizens in the Ukraine have been told to leave and get out, and the US have been warning that an invasion is going to take part in days. Is their intelligence wrong, do you think?
Well, I'm not privy to the intelligence, but I thought it was quite interesting. Sir Tony Brenton, former British ambassador to Moscow, to Russia, I think he's also thinking Putin won't do it. So, you know, it's anyone's guess, but I think he's obviously been an inside observer. So it's just a very high poker game, really. Let's hope, because it is quite nerve-wracking to sort of watch this on Europe's border.
And they say Putin isn't strategic. He won't have a long-term plan, but he is tactical. So he's enjoying the power, the dominance, everybody courting him, coming to him, listening to him saying what he will or won't do, and how is he going to do it. I think something else interesting, this is in the Times today, page 6. It's somebody from the Ukraine. Yes, they're saying, you know, could we have sort of troops in Ukraine to protect us? But he also says, stop using the words imminent threat or imminent invasion, said, because this is destabilising us as a country, full stop. All of a sudden, people are saying, we're going to take out money from your country, investments leaving, businesses leaving, jobs leaving, because they think it's too dangerous to be there. So he's actually saying, please don't talk about this imminent invasion because it's having a destabilising effect and basically doing more than Putin could do.
But I think we're going to find out more because Biden and Macron and Putin are meeting. So let's see what the outcome of that is. So we'll have a real feel for where this is going very shortly. But I'm still optimistic, I mean, really, is he going to want to get bogged down in Ukraine and start a war on Europe's border?
Lots of dead Russian soldiers going back home won't be...
Like Afghanistan.
And
Chechnya
as well.
Absolutely.
But does the threat of sanctions from the West, does that actually make any difference to his decision, or is that just is that just window
Another
dressing?
interesting question. Well, Russia has been orientating more to China, which is also quite worrying, really. So there's more investment in China, there's more provision of gas and oil from Russia into China, so there's less reliance on Europe. So, there's a kind of big question mark, I suppose, around the West's diplomacy towards Russia, because, I mean, it goes back to your point, Putin wants attention, he wants to be a world player. And I suppose he's been feeling sidelined and as well as threatened by that NATO expansion. So, maybe the West could have played it a smarter game here.
And I think it is that. He does feel he's been sidelined. There's been sanctions for many years. The country was in poverty. He's now got the oil. He's got the ingredients the whole world wants. And so he is coming to the forefront of geopolitics. So I think this is about him, his legacy, and how people are coming to his door and what he's going to do. But like you say, we don't know. What else have you seen in the papers, Philip?
Well, on a different note, some people might think this is good news. I thought it was terrible news. It's in the Daily Mail, page 30 and 31 today. It's a story about what to eat to live 10 years longer. And it's got a list of all sorts of things: chickpeas, kidney beans, brown lentils, buckwheat, quinoa. Basically, it's a list of everything I don't eat, basically. And frankly, to be honest, if you had to eat this, I'd rather not live 10 years longer. To be honest, I was looking for sausages, fried bread, and chips on this list, but apparently they're not. They're probably on the list of what to eat if you want to live 10 years less. But,
that's why you look like such a fine specimen of a human being, Philip. It's those full English breakfasts that doing it for you.
So this has really upset me today. Are you a healthy eater, Annette?
I try, but I like my sausages and bacon full English as well. But it's not that bad. Chickpeas are great. I'm a healthy eater. I have led him along this path to try and make him more healthy. And I'm gonna let a secret out, which I tell you, your street cred is going to go through the floor here. He loves cottage pie. Fine. I've now made him a vegan cottage pie with the lentils. Oh, really?
Yes, and with all the vegetables.
Do you like it, Phil? Is it a winner?
Now, this is a winner? Come on, tell the truth.
It pains me to say it. I do, actually. I like it just as much as the real one. But that aside, I can't say. But Esther eats all this stuff. I mean, she's going to go on forever. To be perfectly honest. So anyway, this has been a very
much to everybody. Sadness forever and ever and ever.
Very depressing story. Anyway.
Now, this was, I thought, a cracking story. It's in the Telegraph magazine today. It's about what became of the Canoe Man. Now, I don't know if you remember this. And this was a man, it goes back to the 21st of March 2002, where he faked his own death. He paddled away in a kayak, pretended he'd passed away to claim the insurance. His wife was in on it. He was in on it. He disappeared for a little while. And then he came back home and he was living, you'd have to go through a little cooey in the house to the house next door where he was living. The thing is, he never told his children, he never told the family, to make sure that the grief looked real, to make sure that they could claim the money. Anyway, as these things always do, they invariably unravel. They wanted to come back home. Things weren't working out as they thought it would in this wonderful tropical life they were going to see. And then on the 1st December 2007, he walked into the police station I believe I've been missing, as if everybody would be fine and dandy and welcoming home. Oh no, they both ended up in prison for fraud, for lying, for doing this. And the children obviously never forgave them. They'd been through all of this upset.
That's terrible.
Well, it's 20 years. Film's been made. It's 20 years, obviously, very shortly. It's sort of what's going to happen next, and really how it tore their life apart. Went to Panama, went to prison, then got divorced. Children aren't speaking to them. The wife, however, has done a lot for charity. She's sort of done atonement and changed her life round. But what a life. Have you ever thought, oh, I'd love to fake...
Disappear.
I've never thought...
Actually, no, I've never thought that either. I think that's the most extraordinary story. And the worst bit is, though...
The children.
Yeah. How can you do that?
Yeah, well, they've never, it seems, forgiven the dad. In a way, the mums, they've got a relationship back with mum. But, I mean, how do you do that? And the children ask, so let's get this right. We would come round to see your mum, and are you telling us that dad was in a little cooey hole the other side of the wall, listening to our conversation, pretending he was dead? Unbelievable. Anyway, it's going to be a TV series, and I think he wants to come. He's wanting to come back to the UK. He's sort of living the other side of the world.
Extraordinary.
He could come and do a talk at the Royal Overseas League. And he's,
possibly. I'm not sure about that.
He's been overseas. He knows all about prisons. He knows all about various
Slightly
systems.
too strange a character, I think.
What else has caught your eye?
Well, I think this is it's great news about the easing of COVID curbs. I think it's really fantastic news. So, in the FT, return to normality on horizon after case numbers fall in many Western countries. And there's also mention about bookings picking up to pre-pandemic levels for summer holidays. I mean, that's great news. I mean, of course, you know, Royal Overseas League, we're in the business for hospitality, and also we welcome visitors from across the world. So it'd be great to see some Australians, Canadians and Africans and Asians coming back and staying in our clubhouse in St James's, and also being able to travel as well. It's just fantastic. Finally.
It'd be nice to see people from New Zealand. I mean, they've been locked up, haven't they, in their country for...
Yes. But, you know, it is important as an island that we keep all our connections, as you say, with the Commonwealth, with other countries. And you can do so much, as we've seen on Zoom, but you can't really cement the deals. You really can't do the final sign-off of business deals and all of this soft power that we talk about, that we do, that we negotiate with other people. You cannot do that on a Zoom.
No. Those human relations, I mean, it's interesting. There was another item in the news about mental health. It's heartbreaking, actually, those mental health repercussions from lockdown. So this is just fantastic news. Hopefully a return to the old normal.
Yes, I agree. I'd sooner we hadn't locked down so much in the first place. I just want to mention, if I can, one of my heroes, Sir Ken Dodd. I'm a massive Ken Dodd fan.
Can I tell you, he could actually, if anybody wants a sort of a Ken Dodd tribute act, Phil could go round the country reciting all of his jokes.
Absolutely.
Oh, we'll have him rap.
Yeah, no,
All overseas.
But anyway, the good news is that his widow Anne has agreed to hand over material so that they can produce a West End show about his life. So I will definitely be going to watch that. But you know, obviously Ken Dodd made he made so much. He had so much enjoyment talking about his tax affairs. He always said that he invented self-assessment, and that one of my favourite lines is that he said that he had a very successful meeting with his accountant the other day. The accountant paid the bill and Ken Dodd managed to snatch the receipt. That was his definition of a successful...
I think I've got a topical one, because I do, obviously, from my hometown. I love Ken Dodd. I knew Ken Dodd, and he'd go, "What a lovely day, missus. What a lovely day," for knocking on the Kremlin door and saying, "Is Lenin?" So those are the sort of jokes he would come up with. I've got another fun story here, and this is, again, in the Times, page 3. Simon Martin, who has won Manchester its first Michelin star since 1977. Fantastic chef, but actually he made up bits of his CV. And now that obviously he is accomplished, he is wonderful, he is well known, they're going, "You didn't work here, did you, between these dates from here to here? And you didn't do this and you didn't say that and this, you didn't know this person. So that is your past coming back to haunt you. But you know, if you are starting off and you're wanting a sous chef role or you're wanting to get, do you think, is it right that you fudge your CV a little bit to get a job in a kitchen, or does it always come back to haunt you? Because obviously he's a Michelin chef now.
Come on, Annette, have you ever fiddled your CV? That's what Esther's trying to get to.
Actually, I can't tell you, I've never fiddled my CV. I'm a barrister by background. I would never do that. So I'm a little bit less forgiving. It shouldn't be necessary. His talent in the kitchen should speak for itself. I'm sorry to be a little bit unforgiving on that.
I wonder if there's a difference in jobs as well. If it's lying about qualifications is one thing, to try and just get your foot in the door to say, I worked in this restaurant in Australia, give us a job as a sous chef or something, and then obviously came back to, no, maybe not. We want to hear your views on that. Coming up, we're talking about underage marriage and how one MP is trying to put a stop to it. But first, here's the weather.
Hello, a very good morning to you. I'm Aidan McGivern. A very different start to the day compared to yesterday. Yesterday was frosty but bright in many places. Today it's frost-free but windy and, in some locations, wet. Spells of rain are expected through the weekend. These weather fronts across the UK, stretching all the way back to the mid-Atlantic, they're going to continue to pile in throughout today and tomorrow. So, increasingly damp really across northern and western parts of England as well as Wales. The rain turning heavier and more persistent across Wales and northwest England into the afternoon. Drier and brighter ahead of that for East Anglia, the southeast, parts of the East Midlands, central southern England, but increasingly breezy and cloudy. Sunny spells coming through for Scotland and Northern Ireland, blustery showers here. 10 Celsius for Belfast, 8 for Manchester, 8 for London. Similar to yesterday, but not feeling very pleasant because of the wind and the rain. Coastal gales around Irish Sea coasts, and then the rain eventually sinks into southern England during the evening. Easing off for a time before further spells of heavy rain push back into Wales and the southwest by dawn tomorrow. Drier to the north with some clear spells for Scotland, also a few showers, and frost-free tomorrow morning once again. But it soon goes downhill. Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, much of England and Wales sees wet and windy weather returning. Coastal gales for the south coast, heavy and persistent rain, particularly over parts of Wales, and the rain for the higher parts of Wales really mounting up through Saturday and Sunday. 60 and in some places 100 millimetres of rain could cause disruption. But it's looking damp everywhere, but it is milder, 10 or 11 Celsius in the south, colder for Scotland, 8 Celsius at best here. Brighter skies for the north of Scotland, just a few showers. And that bright, showery weather in the north of Scotland tends to become more widespread on Monday and into Tuesday.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that has been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here. Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
Join me, Gloria De Piero, Monday to Thursday at noon for The Briefing. We go to the parts of Parliament that you won't see elsewhere. Plus, there's exclusive interviews with MPs from all parties.
But quite often, they paper over the real truth. Why does a working class lad like you join the Tories?
That's a good question.
Don't miss it, Monday to Thursdays at noon on GB News.
Hi there, let's take a look at some of your GB views.
Lots of them are on the ethnic pay gap reporting. Gordon says we should look at a society based on a meritocracy. This ethnic disparity argument is ridiculous.
And I've got Pete, surely it should be based on what the job is. There should be no division.
Virginia says we need to start putting people together, not splitting them up. This will just cause anger about racism. Women have more problems in pay than any other group.
And Gordon here, since leaving school, I have not worked in a job where either men or women were paid different rates for the same job. In my opinion, people like the Baroness are seeing a problem where, in my personal experience, there isn't one. And Dan here, where will this idiocy end? Maybe we should pay people on the basis of their height or weight. So that's what you've got to say. Lots more coming in on that as well. So now regular viewers and listeners of the show will know it's not just the government that can push through laws in Parliament. We like to highlight individual MPs trying to make a difference by getting a private member's bill passed into law.
This week, we're joined by Pauline Latham, who stepped in when Sajid Javid became Health Secretary to sponsor his bill to raise the age of consent for marriage to 18 in England and Wales. Pauline, thank you so much for joining us. Why did you decide to take on this bill?
Well, I've been working on this problem for 4 to 6 years in Parliament and never got anywhere. And I'd actually tried to put it through twice as a private member's bill, but it fell because we ran out of time in Parliament, so it didn't get anywhere. So I've been working on it before Sajid thought about it, when he got a private member's bill and I didn't. So when he stepped down, he very kindly put it onto me, and I've been working on it ever since, alongside charities and people who feel it's really important to do this, to save a lot of people heartache who get married at 16 and do not want to have got married.
I was going to say, Pauline, why is this so important to you? What are you trying to stop?
Well, there are two things, really. One is it doesn't look as if we've got a problem in this country because there are only 100 or so forced marriages, marriages between the age of 16 and 18 that are registered. But there are many, many marriages in this country that are not registered, but they go ahead and they are seen by the community as legitimate weddings, and they're not. But also, we've signed up to the international development, the Sustainable Development Goals, which is an international treaty. And we've said that we will stop child marriage. And we go around the world telling other countries to stop child marriage, but we do it. So other countries push back and say, why should we listen to you when you're allowing children of age 16 to get married? So there's the two reasons. There's the domestic and the international dimension.
In the UK, Pauline, forced marriages are already illegal. Why are those laws not sufficient? Why do we need to go further?
because children aren't mentioned in the forced marriage law. So children can be married, and some are married in this country at the age of 12 or 14. So it's because they're not recognised marriages in the eyes of the law, but they are in the eyes of the community. So the reason why it has to go through is to protect those children who are not protected by the forced marriage law. That is a really important law, but there is that loophole.
Can we remove the exemption of parental consent? Is that a direction to go?
Yes, that's exactly what will happen. No child, nobody under the age of 18, no matter what, will be allowed to be married in this country or even taken abroad to be married and brought back. They will not be able to, anybody who does that by coercion or just assumption that it will happen to the child can be prosecuted in the future.
And so how do you think this is progressing? Will this now become law? You said you've been doing this now for over 4 decades. Talk about if at first you don't succeed, keep going, Pauline, and you absolutely have. How is the passage? Is this going to get through? Are you going to triumph this time?
I think it's third time lucky. Yes, I think so. We've been through committee stage. We've got third reading on the 25th of February. And then it goes to the House of Lords. And I think it'll rapidly go through the House of Lords because they've been also trying to do it, starting at their end. But because they didn't have government support, it fell every time. So now, because we have government support, we have ministerial support, it will, provided time doesn't run out, provided an election isn't called before Easter, I think that we will get it through. And it should become law by Easter and at the very latest by May bank holiday. So, you know, that's really good progress. And what we need to do is make sure that the law is right. It has to have that element of criminal prosecution. Otherwise, it would just continue. Whereas these children, predominantly girls, but some boys, are at risk of losing their education, not becoming functioning members of an economic society. Even in this country, girls, particularly girls, are being coerced into marriage and they don't know how to say no at 16. At 18, they will know how to. So I think that's the big difference. At 18, they are stronger and can be economically successful in their own right, whereas at 16, they can't because they're in school or in apprenticeships or at some sort of training. It's not that easy for them to say no to their parents.
Pauline, on a separate note, you've just literally come back from Bosnia. You were on a sort of a parliamentary visit there. Can you tell us what you were doing there?
Select committee looking at basically discussion and genocide and prevention of genocide and prevention of war. We chose Bosnia because it was an easy country to get to and it has had terrible traumas. And I would liken it to Rwanda, where I've been several times. And Rwanda seems to have come through it and is economically prosperous. The problem with Bosnia is there's been no help for them to have peace and reconciliation, to talk about it, and they're still very angry people. And I think there's a massive problem there because people are leaving the country in droves. There's only 3,000 people in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and they think that by 2030 it could be 1.5 million. I mean, that is just phenomenal change, and then it becomes economically not viable. So there's huge problems. We'll be bringing out a report into what we've seen, and I think that we need to contrast it with somewhere like Rwanda, who has progressed, but one of the major problems we could find out was there's huge levels of corruption there at every level of government, every level in a hospital, every level in school and education, right down to kindergartens. There's corruption. So no wonder the country's not prospering as it should do. So it's a very complicated, complex issue. And I'm very saddened for the ordinary Bosnian because they are being left out of all this, and we're putting money in as other countries are, and there's a huge problem with their anger and upset and trauma still, even, since 1995, and that's shocking.
Pauline Latham, MP for Mid Derbyshire, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck with your bill on the 25th of February, and I will be there to support you.
Still to come on Saturday's election, we'll be taking a look at all the weekend sport. But first, it's the news headlines.
It's 11:30 a.m. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. President Joe Biden will speak to his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, today. That's as the United States evacuates non-emergency staff from its embassy in Ukraine's capital, Kiev. Here, the Foreign Office is urging British nationals to leave Ukraine immediately while commercial means are still available. The Metropolitan Police has given the Prime Minister just 7 days to explain his attendance at an event held at Number 10 during COVID restrictions or face a fine. Downing Street confirmed last night that Mr Johnson had received a legal questionnaire from officers and will respond. The Prime Minister is alleged to have been at up to 6 of the 12 events being investigated. As part of Operation Hillman, he's denied any wrongdoing. The Taliban have released a British journalist they'd been holding for several days in Afghanistan. Andrew North was on assignment for the United Nations Refugee Agency, reporting on the country's humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, friends of a second British man, Peter Juvenal, detained by the Taliban since early December, have pleaded for his release. Experts from SAGE are warning that lifting all COVID restrictions will have a disproportionate impact on vulnerable people. It follows the Prime Minister's announcement that restrictions will end soon, including the need to self-isolate following a positive test. SAGE has also raised concerns about the consequences of removing access to free testing. French police say they've intercepted 500 vehicles from so-called freedom convoys seeking to enter Paris. Inspired by the ongoing events in Canada, protesters are demonstrating against COVID-19 restrictions. They're expected to defy a police order and attempt to enter the French capital. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. We'll have a full update at the top of the hour. Now it's back to Saturday Selection.
As always, it's a busy Saturday of sport with Premier League, Six Nations and Winter Olympic action taking place. Sports writer and broadcaster Aidan McGee joins us once more in the studio. Aidan, we've already spoken about the West Ham and Kurt Zouma situation.
Yeah.
But it's a sign of how tight things are in the race for the Champions League place, that they're desperate to play all their players.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, David Moyes, one of the points he made yesterday was that West Ham are having a very successful season. They are 2 points inside the top 4. They've played 2 games more than Arsenal. That means tomorrow's game against Leicester away at 4:30 is extremely important. Kurt Zouma has been very much part of that. We discussed him earlier on, but it's getting very tight and concertinaed at the top of that top 4 to top 6 positions. It'd be a huge achievement for West Ham to qualify for the Champions League for the first time in their history. But it's not just that as well. I mean, there's lots of other games going on this weekend. Chelsea are in action at the World Club Trophy or World Club Cup in Abu Dhabi, so they're the absentee that means that the fixtures are slightly out of kilter. But Man United playing Southampton at 12 o'clock, 12:30 today. That's an interesting one because Ralph Rangnick, the Manchester United manager, recruited the Southampton manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, to a job at RB Leipzig back in 2016 and kind of built his managerial career. And here they are just a few years later lining up against each other at 12:30. Everton, they play Leeds today at 3 o'clock. Huge game because Frank Lampard's reign didn't get on to a great start against Newcastle the other day, but they're back at home now. He's given the supporters a lift. It's up to the players now, Phil, to try and move things forward from here onwards.
And it's the Winter Olympics are taking place, so obviously we've got to talk about doping.
Because
you can't have an Olympic Games without a doping scandal.
No, you can't. You can't have an Olympic Games without a political discussion or a drug scandal, can you? But this one's something I've never seen before. This is effectively a child, 15-year-old Kamila Valieva, a figure skater from Russia. Now, the problem here is that it's the tremetazidine is the name of the drug. Now, that affects lung capacity. Esther and I were talking about it off set earlier on, weren't we? It was something that affects the aerobics. it's also treated in everyday life as something you have for angina. So it's very peculiar that a 15-year-old would be taking it for innocent means, or innocent purposes, as we would suggest. But the problem arises from the fact that some people are questioning why Russian athletes are at these games at all. I mean, they had their ban reduced from 4 years to 2 years. I mean, why that happened is inexplicable, quite frankly. 212 Russian athletes are at this event. They're operating or they're competing under the guise of the ROC, the Russian Olympic Committee. Now, can you imagine if Team GB was suspended or cut out of any Olympic competition in future years, and then someone says, well, actually, just to be fair to all the athletes who are clean, they're going to compete under the banner of the IOC. Would anyone still see them as not British? Of course you would. You still see Linfa Christie or Sally Gunnell or anybody else as British, same as all these athletes are Russian. And the fact is that the culture of doping doesn't seem to have dissipated at all. It seems to be as prevalent as it always was. And there's an investigation that's going to happen, it looks like, not just into the competitor herself, Kamila Valieva, but also her entourage. Never been seen before. They're going to investigate the people around her to see how this situation, how we've arrived at a situation where a minor has been encouraged to take performance-enhancing drugs.
Now, talking about dodgy competitors, I understand that you've been competing in a fancy dress.
I don't know what you're talking about.
In a fancy.
I was wondering if you'd been taking anything to dress up as Margaret Thatcher here.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Well, it was my
Are you
sister.
going to tell us about this?
Yeah, I may as well come clean. Yeah,
It's a scandal, isn't it? This is a dressing up scandal.
So I hired this Maggie Thatcher outfit last week. It turned up about this time last week in the early afternoon. And it didn't
Blonde
have a
wig and beard.
It didn't have a wig. Yeah, I'm actually wearing a bra, believe it or not, because I put 2 pairs of socks in each cup to give myself a nice 40 double D bust. And it was very effective. There wasn't actually a competition on the night, but I felt very comfortable in that outfit.
With a big bust, you felt comfortable with a big bust?
Everyone kept complimenting me on my figure, which was lovely. But yeah, I did some dancing as well. So it was a fantastic night, and that was why I couldn't be here last Sunday with Anne and Stephen, because I was a little bit hungover for the night before. I was competing with some other brilliant 70s and 80s characters as well, like yours and the Milk Tray Man.
I think this has been captured on video, hasn't
You're
it?
joking?
I believe it has been captured. I think it has been captured on video. I mean, all I can say is if you're listening on radio, you are blessed, because the picture of Aidan in his Maggie Thatcher outfit, it wasn't doing it for me. I mean,
It wasn't. Oh, I'm surprised.
Can we see the video? Yes, well, I mean, I don't know what to say.
Well, I think
would you have mistaken me? Would you have mistaken me for the Iron Lady?
I'll tell you who I would have mistaken you for. I think that's a bit Kenny Everett.
No, yeah.
That was all done in the best possible taste.
Possibly.
You just needed the big hands.
That was a different character.
I was so comfortable in the outfit. I started going around offering people taxis.
Well, if you're so comfortable, next week we will see you here in that outfit.
Oh goodness me, I might have disposed of it by now, but we'll see.
Aidan McGee, thank you so much for joining us, and particularly for that video. Absolutely fantastic.
Coming up, we'll be asking, is it time to scrap exams? Don't go anywhere.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Is our exam system fit for purpose? After 2 years of COVID disruption, examiners have promised to be lenient again this summer, leading to a further bout of grade inflation.
Earlier in the week, former Conservative Minister Lord Young called for exams to be scrapped in favour of continual assessment, arguing the current school system leaves pupils completely ill-prepared for the real world.
We're joined by Lord Lucas, education commentator and editor-in-chief of the Good Schools Guide. Lord Lucas, is your
Good morning.
peer correct to call for an end to exams?
I think he's quite correct to call for a real look at what we should do with exams. There's such a mess being made of them by COVID that we might as well look and see which way we should go. A lot of things have changed from COVID. Work patterns have changed, attitudes to risk have changed. We should look at exams. And Lord Young always talks a lot of sense. I don't agree with all his conclusions, but he's always worth listening to.
Well, he's definitely said young people aren't prepared. So if it's not exams, is it maybe this continual assessment? Is it lifelong learning? Or is it just to understand what attributes you need for the workplace?
I think that the last is the really important thing. I mean, I've my life with figures, and I have only used half of what I learnt in Maths O-level. A lot of these examinations have become constructed around what's easily testable rather than what you actually need to know and live. But at the end of the day, continuous assessment is a pretty nightmarish situation. You can't relax for a moment. You're always in danger of losing your place. Whereas a final exam, what have you actually learned? Where have you got to? Has a lot of comfort to it. It allows school to be a much more relaxed place. So I'm fundamentally in favour of exams, in favour of something you can take away with you and say, this on a national scale, on a national competition, is what I did.
Has, though, I mean, this has all sort of come about with Lord Young's comments because of the grade inflation we saw, particularly in lots of private schools, when schools were invited to do their own assessment. But we were having this sort of grade inflation before that. I just wondered, I mean, do employers really care about exam grades anymore and qualifications? Because, you know, everybody, I mean, I don't particularly when I employ somebody, because everybody's got a degree, everybody's got 5 GCSEs, everybody's got 3 A-levels. I mean, have we now got to the point where all of these qualifications are completely meaningless as far as an employer's concerned?
I don't know. I can't look at that from an employer's point of view. I think they're a good shorthand. You want to know that pupils have a certain level of English. If you're wanting to employ someone working in foreign markets, you want to know their languages are good enough. Whether they've got a qualification is a pretty good indication of that. It's a good shorthand on the way in. But also, I think it's a good summation to school. If you're going to ask children to work hard 13 years in school, to be able to carry away something at the end of it, to say, yes, I did that, I did this, I got there, I have this to show, to evidence my achievements. I think that's an important thing to carry out into the world. We might find better and more electronic ways of doing it. We might find better ways of assessment. I think we should have a go at it. But we shouldn't, I think, walk away from the value of having something that is a quick and authentic summary of where you've got to in the world.
You see, I think pupils are probably working harder than ever in schools at the moment. My children have just both finished at school, and I think they're expected to work harder than ever. I just fear that when they come out and they've worked really hard for these qualifications, they come out and find out the hard way from an employer, actually, do you know what? That qualification that you've worked really hard for actually is barely worth the paper it's written on, because actually the employer doesn't care about it anymore. That's what I worry about. Do you not think that these grades are being and qualifications are being given out a bit too easily?
I think schools were really well behaved in COVID. I think they honestly looked at what children had done, the work that they had shown, and the capabilities that they had demonstrated. What we're seeing is an expression of what teachers think children are capable of and have shown themselves capable of. Examinations are always bound to be a step below that. I mean, on the day, that may not be your day. So the grade inflation we're seeing is not an inflation of grades. It's a different way of assessing the grades. It's saying, what is this child capable of, rather than what did they do on the day. So it's a hard system to keep going, because you then build in gradual inflation to it. But I think teachers, by and large, were very honest in the process of COVID. It was part of the national reaction, to be fair, and to be honest about what they were doing.
I'm with you. I think exams are important. I think it's good to teach somebody to be able to cope with pressure. It's about timetabling, it's about focus, it's about memory recall, it's about being able to apply your knowledge that you've done over the last year or two. So I am a fan of exams, and I think they'll be hugely missed if it is a form of assessment throughout the year, because I always thought if you've got somebody there to help you, they can do the assessments for you. There's only you who can go in and sit your exam. So I'm afraid I'm an old-fashioned stickler for the exam process.
I'm glad to get a bit of support, but it's there is nothing that is absolute in this. I think this is let's have a look. Let's take this as a chance to look afresh at what we're doing and how we assess. There's a lot of modern techniques, given the availability of computing, given a technique called comparative judgment, which is being pioneered, which gets away from formulaic answers and lets people examine something which is much more freeform. There are ways of moving the system on, and we ought to take the chance of having a system that has been broken by COVID to remake it in the best way we can.
Lord Ralph Lucas, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Thank you. Phil, we've got some views in there. We've
got some more views. David says, as two MPs, how can Parliament justify a half-term holiday when no other members of society have that opportunity? On top of that, all MPs are able to take holidays at any time. Well, David, I'm sure lots of people will agree with you about that. All I can say is that given the damage that MPs tend to do when they're in Parliament, you should be pleased that we're not there, to be perfectly honest. I would say that was probably a benefit that we're away from there as often as possible.
Look, I will explain what happens. When we're not in Parliament, actually a key bit of our job is to meet with constituents, businesses, hold surgeries, see what's happening with charities and groups. So although it's away from Parliament, and in that regard it's known as recess, you actually do work in your own constituency, because that's where you've got the knowledge and you take forward their views into Parliament. So recess is probably not quite the right word. It's sort of away from Parliament for most of us.
And there's quite a lot of support for exams. Alexander says, no, exams should not be scrapped. It might not be the most true test of knowledge, but it teaches competition and winning, which is needed for life and the real world.
I totally agree. And here I've got China and Russia are leaping ahead, but here we are trying to dumb down our education and what we do. And I think it's a globally competitive world we're in, and to have a good and an excellent education is going to be key. So I think that's really important. Anyway, next, let's finish the show with a regular look at the world of showbiz. We're joined in the studio by Showbiz reporter Hayley Palmer. And Hayley, talk us through what's been happening with this week's Oscar nominations. What stood out for you?
One of my favourite times of the year, the Oscars. Let's talk The Power of the Dog, because this is actually up for 12 nominations, followed by June, that has 10, and West Side Story and Belfast, which has 7. So really exciting. Now, I want to talk Kenneth Branagh because he is up for 7 nominations, which is unheard of in these times. I am a big fan of Kenneth Branagh. I actually went to see a preview of the film Death on the Nile this week. Now, it's actually starring Russell Brand in it and Jennifer Saunders and Dawn French, but it was one of the most gripping films I've seen in a long time. So it's out in cinemas now. It went out yesterday, so try and catch that this weekend.
It seemed an unusual
Or Valentine's Day, Monday.
Oh, yes.
Local cinema, Rex Cinema.
It seemed an unusual cast. I mean, I can't say I'm an expert on these matters, but it seemed an unusual cast for Death on the Nile.
Yeah, I agree, Philip. I was surprised as well. But you know what? It does work. And it's definitely worth watching. It's Murder Mystery Film of the Year for me.
Right.
And Kenneth, I mean, you know, yes, he was an actor, but he's really found his niche, hasn't he? Obviously, he directed. I've seen him play Shakespeare at theatre. I've seen him in films, but this seems to be what he will absolutely be remembered for.
Absolutely. I mean, Belfast is one of the 10 films that's in the running for Best Picture. I know that's my mum's favourite film. She loves that. And, yeah, he's just doing really well at the moment. He's on the roll. So, yeah, watch this space with the Oscars.
Has he got a real chance of winning, do you think? Do you think Belfast got a real chance of winning?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
That'd be awful, wouldn't it? Up for so many and then not get any.
Yeah,
Nominated for so many, but got none.
You've got to win one. Obviously, the thing that caught my eye this week was the Brit Awards, and we seem to talk about Adele every week on this show. But the thing that struck me was it was about the gender-neutral awards.
Right.
Now, I couldn't work out whether this was the Brits going woke, or even more woke, or whether it was the Brits being sensible because it was reducing the number of awards that they had to give out because they didn't have to have separate male and female. Which?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, I think, well, you know, Adele was up against Ed Sheeran and British rapper Little Sims. For me, personally, Adele's my favourite female artist and Ed Sheeran's my favourite male artist. So I would have liked both of them to have an award. That's just how I personally feel. But yeah, I couldn't work out if they wanted to cut it down a little bit because sometimes these award ceremonies do go on for a long time. I mean, for example, they put the R&B act and the pop act in the same category. So maybe that kind of upset a few people there because I think R&B and pop are totally different. So it did seem that they were doing that. I don't know the actual reason, but we can say that Adele did really well. I mean, it was actually 10 out of the 15 awards, you know, were won by women. So it was the night of the females. And speaking of Adele, I don't know if you saw Graham Norton last night, but she was on there saying that 100% she will be back in Vegas this year.
Do we believe
yeah. I mean, you know, I was here the other week talking about Adele. I was upset that she let her fans down. You know, I still haven't got to the bottom of that one because people did pay out a lot of money. Have they got their money back? Or I'm not sure what the situation is there. And I was quite concerned for her mental health when I saw that video of her. But actually, she was on Graham Norton in high spirits. She looked fabulous. And then she went out to GAY afterwards and had a great night on the town.
But I think anybody who can be, such a phenomenal writer and performer, they have got a lot of emotion within them. So she probably is on that roller coaster of highs and of lows, isn't she? She's got to create those songs. She's then got to perform them. I see she's also back on her cigarettes, although she was giving them up. But I just put that as this sort of roller coaster of emotion that she's on. And I didn't know what she stole the show with, her singing and performance, or by saying, I love being a woman. I mean, she was making a statement there as well, wasn't she? Coming out and winning this as a powerful woman as she sees herself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was taken hugely out of context. I mean, I know she said that. Everyone cheered when she said it. It was all in the press. It was all over social media. I know we're talking about her a lot at the moment, but I agree. I think it must be tough you're performing, but you must have those down days and then coming back and the pressure, it must get to her. So she deserved a night out.
And what a journey she's gone on as well, hasn't she? From a young girl when she came out, and some might say a frumpy young girl, to now a sensational sort of looking woman, singer, performer. I mean, keep going. It's a new album every couple of years, and by goodness, she absolutely knocks it, doesn't she? She knocks
really
it out the ballpark.
Yeah, and she, like you say, she looks absolutely fabulous. She's on Graham Norton, this beautiful suit, and her hair and makeup just look wonderful. So a real transformation there. So I am a big Adele fan. I am following her, and hopefully we will see her in Vegas.
Well, we can look forward to it. It seems to me that the men are going to be asking for the separation of the awards back, aren't they, to give them a chance of winning, given that the women won all the awards at the Brit Awards. Men are going to say, can we have the male award back, please? Because we can't win one otherwise.
What will happen next year? I was thinking that. What will they do? What will come in time? If they've done that this year. So I guess we'll have to watch this space.
And very, very quickly, pick of the week. That I might as well say it. It's hosted by Ollie Murs, and it's episode 1 of Starstruck. So we've only got time for that. Hayley, thank you very much for joining us. Phil and I will be back next week, won't we? 10 o'clock till 12 next week. Next, Alistair Stewart and friends, and I know he's got a very special guest, Nicholas Soames, on today. So see them later.
Hello, a very good morning to you. I'm Aidan McGivern. A very different start to the day compared to yesterday. Yesterday was frosty but bright in many places. Today it's frost-free but windy and, in some locations, wet. Spells of rain are expected through the weekend. These weather fronts across the UK, stretching all the way back to the mid-Atlantic, they're going to continue to pile in throughout today and tomorrow. So, increasingly damp really across northern and western parts of England as well as Wales. The rain turning heavier and more persistent across Wales and northwest England into the afternoon. Drier and brighter ahead of that for East Anglia, the southeast, parts of the East Midlands, central southern England, but increasingly breezy and cloudy. Sunny spells coming through for Scotland and Northern Ireland, blustery showers here. 10 Celsius for Belfast, 8 for Manchester, 8 for London. Similar to yesterday, but not feeling very pleasant because of the wind and the rain. Coastal gales around